Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut, whatever you want to call it. It's a freak of nature. This film should not exist, but it does. And that's what we're going to be talking about for the next half an hour on today's video. It's an insane movie. It truly is. I remember when we were all fighting for this movie as a community together. And we were all hyping it up in our imaginations. But I remember now and again I used to think about it. Well, bloody hell, Mick, you're a content creator. Calm down a bit. What if it's a load of crap? I mean, I didn't think it would be, but you never know. You never know, right? And I was imagining it was going to be this most amazing Justice League movie. A movie that we dreamt of. And when I saw it, it wasn't what I imagined. It was 10 billion times better. Better. I'd never seen anything like Zack Snyder's Justice League before. It's an insane film. Considering the piece of shit that Justice League is, this film is absolutely shocking in the 100%, 2 billion% of quality it's got. So you ask the question, why didn't they want this movie? All right, they were never releasing a 4-hour cut of that movie. They could have actually did what they're pretty much doing with Rebel Moon over on Netflix, just over a couple of hours for the first movie, just a couple of hours for the next movie. Because originally Zack wanted to make a 4-hour cut of Rebel Moon, and I think Scott Stuber, who was in charge of Netflix at the time, said, well, we find that people will only stay there continuously for around 2 hours or so, which I think Scott's got a very good point. And Zack says, well, I need to tell my story. And Scott was very good. He allowed him to make it a trilogy, which is something that WB never allowed him to do with Justice League. But when you look at Zack Snyder's Justice League, and it's not just the visuals are beautiful. And I mean, if we're going to talk about the Snyder Cut today, what about Justice is Great, which is exactly the same film, but in black and white? It's what they did with Logan as well. And like Logan, the black and white version may be even better than the colour version. Not that I don't prefer watching it in colour, because when when someone's got, the skill and the art and beauty of Zack Snyder, you'd rather not see that in black and white. You'd rather see that in IMAX. You'd rather see that in 4K colour, right? But I really do appreciate that Zack gave us a black and white version as well. Do you remember before we saw it? And we were all, there was lots of rumours, maybe they're going to release an uncut version with no music or anything like that. And I was thinking, nah. I want to see this movie. It's like this shit when people say, let's get animated Snyderverse instead of live action. No, because it's not any easier to do animation, not the way that Zack wants to do it. I don't want to talk about that, because when people start telling me they, let's just do the animation, I just get wound up and I turn a bit nasty, and I don't want to do that. Because today's talking about what I love and not what makes me angry, because basically the internet's just insanity, isn't it? But it is a unique film. I mean, I don't see how anyone makes a Justice League movie that compares with this one. I think they do have a bit of a problem over at DC Universe when they come to Justice League. I'm sure they'll give us a really good Justice League movie eventually. Maybe it's better not to have a Justice League movie. Maybe it's just great to see Justice League members in other people's films, and maybe we can see the Hall of Justice in the other films and, do it like that. But look, they know there's money in Justice League, so I'm sure they will give us a Justice League movie in the end. But, I mean, Zack Snyder's a maniac for making the film the way he did, but it is sensational. One of the greatest achievements of Zack's Justice League is actually the way each character gets their time to shine. Even Superman, amazingly, considering he's not really in this movie a hell of a lot because he died in BVS. And because Zack Snyder had this beautiful connective tissue throughout all three movies, at the beginning of each movie, you kind of continue from the last one. In fact, the studio cut of Suicide Squad even has a reference to Superman's death at the beginning, which I think's really, really good. And although it's not David Ayer's movie, I do like the fact that they do that. But you know, that's one of the greatest things about Zack Snyder's Justice League is like each character, each Justice League member, even Lois Lane, gets their time to shine. And I mean, the way we see Barry Allen's world, the way we see Aquaman's world. I mean, it really is amazing the way we see Gal Gadot, Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman and Diana Prince. But really, the arc I think that Zack really gave everything to and really gave lots of screen time was Ray Fisher's Cyborg, Victor Stone. It was amazing. It was the premise was amazing. And Chris Terrio really did write some great stuff for Ray Fisher. Ray Fisher performed the shit out of it. It was amazing. The whole arc of his relationship with his father, because if one's father does that to save their son's life, after, their mum dies, there's going to be some resentment and some bitterness. And, you would maybe think there'll be some gratitude, but no. I mean, look what he's become. Imagine, right? You're a top athlete. You're in a car crash. You wake up and you've got this machinery on you. You're literally like, well, you're a cyborg. It's insane. You can't really go outside. You can't let people see what you look like. It's devastating. What kind of a life is that? And what they do within this beautiful film is show us how Victor Stone comes to terms with that. It's very interesting just coming off the Flash movie and the disappointment and the reaction and the box office to that movie. I really enjoyed the chemistry between Ezra Miller and Ray Fisher in the Snyder Cut. It is so good and so powerful, and it's fun. And, there's that moment where, he asks Victor if he thinks Diana, Wonder Woman, would be interested in younger guys. And Cyborg goes, well, she's been around for so many years. Everyone's a younger guy to her. And I love that. The writing is so sharp. And there is an apt amount of humour in this film. But what it does, it doesn't take away from the dramatic, serious moments. And also, the way you see the Justice League get together and bonding. It's the interesting difference between when, Ben Affleck's Batman, Bruce Wayne suggests they bring Superman back from the dead. Now, in the Whedon cut, they created this animosity between Bruce and Diana. Diana really thinks it's wrong. There's a million ways it could go wrong. And in Justice League, Diana's right to have these concerns, but they didn't do that in the Snyder Cut. They didn't really want to go there. So it's very interesting. But the way they kind of all agree to bring Superman back, because they know Superman's the only hope that they've got. And I think that's the interesting thing for me. The way they unite as a team. So it's a really, really, amazing, unique film. We will never see a film like the Snyder Cut again. It's so different to Man of Steel. It's so different to BVS. It's its own beast, and that's why I think it's amazing. It's the continuation of Man of Steel and BVS. But what I like about Zack is every movie in the DCEU that he directed was so different. So when people say, well, Snyder's this, Snyder's that, I don't agree. Snyder's very different in each of those films that he did. And if you throw Watchmen into it, Watchmen is a dramatically different film to Man of Steel, to BVS, and the Snyder Cut. But I believe that the Snyder Cut is Zack Snyder's crowning glory. It's the best film he ever made. And just imagine if they actually allowed him to make the actual Justice League movie that he exactly wanted to make. It would have been even more amazing, even more insane. It really is unique. And you look at Zack Snyder's Justice League and you compare it to Joss Whedon's Avengers Assemble. Very, very interesting, because Avengers Assemble is really made for the general audience. It's really made for cinema, but it's a really good popcorn chomping superhero team up movie. And you know, the Snyder Cut, in a lot of ways, is so Snyder. It's an interesting film because I think people who saw it thought it was amazing. And I think a lot of people were surprised how much they liked it. I think to some people, maybe the length would have been off-putting, like general audiences don't have a big attention span. But I think people watched it in bits and pieces. I think a lot of members of the general audience who subscribed to HBO Max, who had Sky TV in the UK, who bought it digitally or the physical media eventually, I think wouldn't have sat there for 4 hours. Damn it, I did. I'm a nutter. I watched 4 hours in colour, then I watched the other 4 hours in black and white with Justice is Great as well. I mean, I just remember the day, I remember the day when it was released and I didn't have access to HBO Max, and I was very, very upset because I wanted to consume it like everybody else did. I'd fought for this film like everybody else did. I'm not going to say it was me, it's because of me, but I was a little cog in the wheel and I was very, very upset and frustrated. Now, in the end, I did find a way to watch it, and I'm not going to go into how I did that, but I did. And I couldn't believe my fucking eyes. And I was thinking, this director is a maniac. I mean, the reason we got the Snyder Cut is totally through Zack Snyder's tenacity. His tenacious fight to get this film released. Having people like Ray Fisher and Jason Momoa at Comic-Con whispering in fans' ears and telling them this and telling them that. It's the fans and the director getting together. But it's Zack Snyder's tenacity. Even now, he wants to restore the Snyderverse and he keeps on stirring the pot. And I appreciate that. Now, I've said before, I think that James Gunn can add something great to the DC universe, but it doesn't matter. Let me say it again. It doesn't mean I don't want to see the Snyderverse restored. Maybe at DC Elseworlds, maybe at Netflix. I still dream the dream. I just don't know how realistic that's going to be. But back to this film. It's sensational. And let's just talk about the score from Junkie XL. Poor Junkie XL composed one score for Zack's original Justice League movie, which I think would have been about 2.5 hours because that's what they wanted. They wanted 2 hours, he said 2.5. But he composed music for that 2.5 hours. But what's interesting is, what a lot of people don't realise is, I think most people do, like the diehards, is it was so different. He composed that soundtrack, he binned it. So when Zack cut his 4-hour movie together, the Snyder Cut, he composed a totally fresh score. He started from scratch. And I mean, I'd absolutely love to hear what he did for the original cut. And I mean, you look what they did with Justice League and, you know, bringing in another composer. And by the way, the composer who composed Justice League actually never saw the movie while he composed it. He just saw sketches and shit. And he composed the movie through that. Absolute insanity. I'm not saying the music on Justice League is shit. That wouldn't be fair. But obviously, Junkie XL is a great composer who learned from the very best, Hans Zimmer. To compose music for a 4-hour movie when you don't have long to do it, and to deliver the quality to the fans that Junkie did, is absolutely sensational. And I'd say, thank you, sir. Brilliant. As I say, it's one of the most outstanding movies I've ever seen. Snyder's style isn't for everyone. And as I say, everyone has valid opinions about everything. It's like this new animated Superman TV series. You know, Snyder fans seem to be offended by it. You know, so-called real DC fans seem to be loving it better than that Snyder stuff. This is what I keep on saying. There's no wrong way of going at Superman. The George Reeves show isn't wrong. The Christopher Reeve series of films isn't wrong. The Superboy TV series isn't wrong. The Lois and Clark Dean Cain show isn't wrong. Smallville isn't wrong. Superman Returns isn't wrong. Man of Steel, BVS, the Snyder Cut, which we're talking about today, isn't wrong. there's different fans who love different things that have been done with these brilliant DC characters. And that's okay. And it does sadden me when I'm on Twitter or on here and I hear people, I heard one person saying a bad movie or a bad way to make DC. And they didn't understand. But you don't understand because you have a different opinion. You're not supposed to understand. So whatever you love, whether it's DC or Marvel or Star Wars, or if you like the soap operas like I do, the British soaps, the classic American soaps, like Santa Barbara, Sunset Beach, Knots Landing, Dallas, whatever you're into in entertainment, this is the place to be. We predominantly talk about DC every day because I basically somehow built a platform with mainly DC fans. But I will talk about anything you want me to talk about. So if there's an audience for that, I will always do that. But it doesn't matter what you love. You are welcome to state your opinion constructively on here. Sometimes it will get heated, sometimes I'll get heated. But once I've said my bit, there's no hatred, there's no grudges, because anyone who hates you or holds a grudge against you because you don't agree should go back in time and basically marry Adolf Hitler. Because these days we're allowed to have different opinions. Love what you love. Don't worry about what you hate. Don't worry if you hate James Gunn. Stop talking about your hate for James Gunn. Talk about what you love. And today we're talking about something we love from DC, and it's the Snyder Cut. A thing of beauty. An amazing thing. An amazing story. I remember one of the trailers I first saw, and it was the first time I saw Darkseid, and I discovered Darkseid was going to be in the movie. Yeah, I remember Kevin Smith saying that Darkseid was in it, but I thought, yeah, what's he going to look like? You know, not that I doubted that, but how many scenes is he going to be in? When I saw him in the trailer, I thought, fucking hell, that is Darkseid. That is fucking Darkseid, mate. I mean, he looks amazing. But Ray Porter's voice acting is fucking sensational. The dialogue is fucking Darkseid. And even the great grandson or nephew of the guy who created Darkseid, really gave Zack applause and respect. And these are hard people to please because they realize the legacy of what was created with these characters. So amazing. You can't really kind of underestimate the achievement of Zack Snyder's Justice League. And who should get the credit? Lots of people should get the credit for this film being released. The fans, Zack, of course, as I said earlier, very, very tenacious in fighting for his movie. But there's a man called John Stankey, who was the president of AT&T, who gave Zack Snyder $70 million to finish his movie. Because Warner Brothers Pictures had no intention of releasing the Snyder Cut. They didn't want that movie released. They didn't want the world to see the dumbest decision ever made in Hollywood history, in studio movie history. It was done for someone to make such a good movie and for them to deliver Justice League with Cavill's upper lip. Poor Henry. Oh my God. Rest in peace, Henry Cavill's upper lip. But Jesus Christ, right? So they were embarrassed. They didn't want the world to see the masterpiece that Snyder created. So what happened was, from the day Stankey gave Snyder the $70 million, the civil war began between Emmerich and Hamada and Johns. And Stankey, the CEO, who owned a company that owned Warner Brothers, as a whole. Because Stankey knew how many people wanted to see this movie. He saw the fight to release the Snyder Cut. And it's ironic today, Collider are denying that, the director's cut of Batman Forever, the Schumacher cut, exists. Just like they were denying at the time that the Snyder Cut existed. It's funny how, things don't change. The idiots will remain idiots. Well, on this channel, we do believe the Schumacher cut exists. We will fight for the Schumacher cut. And we will do videos about the Schumacher cut if that's what you want me to do. Absolutely. If there's an audience for that, we will do it. But I believe in the Schumacher cut. I want to see the Schumacher cut. And by the way, before we carry on our remaining 10 minutes of today's show, just lauding praise on Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut. Yesterday, David Ayer, the writer-director of the 2016 Suicide Squad movie, had a new profile picture on his Twitter at the very least. And he had a Suicide Squad 2016 top on. Could it be he's hinting that we're about to see the Ayer cut of Suicide Squad? Did James Gunn keep his promise after David being the good soldier and supporting James's brilliant Suicide Squad movie? I think so. And I think we're going to hear something very soon. And that excites me a great deal because they really need the money. I think we're going to get the Ayer cut. I think we're going to get the Schumacher cut. And I can't wait. So really, I don't have enough time in the day to explain to you what a huge achievement Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut was. It really was. I remember what the day we heard we were getting this movie. It was insane. Zack was over on Vero. He did a director's commentary on Man of Steel. It was amazing. He was there. Deb was there on and off, and Henry Cavill surprised us, and we had fans there. And I remember the woman saying, "So are you going to give us the Snyder Cut?" And he was winding us up. He was teasing us, bless him. It was an amazing day, and I quickly was so excited. I got my Justice League Blu-ray, smashed it on this platform. The video's there somewhere. Don't ask me what bit of my profile it's under, but it should still be there. It was a very, very exciting day. And you don't actually know how difficult it is to break a Blu-ray. It was fucking insane. I was like, oh my God, I look like such an idiot, such a wimp. I think I just kind of bent it in the end. What a waste of a Blu-ray, but at the end of the day, it had to go. There's only one Justice League movie, and it's Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut. I'm absolutely proud to have stood with all of you to fight the good fight. I'm absolutely proud that I stood side by side with Zack and Deb. It was such an important fight, everyone. You can't imagine what it's like. I can't imagine what it's like to have a daughter, a young daughter, take her life. And what that means as a parent, and the horrible things some people on Twitter and other social media platforms were saying about the Snyders. Untrue things, nasty things, cruel things. And the studio trying to use that tragedy as the reason Zack and Deb stepped down. No, that wasn't the truth. They had put such pressure on them, along with their grief, they couldn't fight the studio. So they walked away. And they never said one thing. They never had a war of words in the early days. They kept their heads down. But things were leaking out. That classic scene of Barry saving Iris. The brilliant Kiersey Clements, by the way, who deserved more than what she got in the Flash movie. But she absolutely looked stunning in the Snyder Cut. Her performance was great, even though she wasn't in it for that long. I'm sure Zack had big plans to use her more if he got to do his Justice League 2, Justice League 3. Who knows? She may have even been in Ben Affleck's Batman movie as a cameo. Who knows? But Kiersey is a really good actor. Great Iris, but, what a shame. But I remember when that scene was leaked out, when Barry saves Iris. And I remember seeing it, and it wasn't finished. But it looked fucking amazing. And just from that leak, this is what really started people fighting to release the Snyder Cut. Because then we all knew we were ripped off. And I mean, we believed the WB lies that Joss Whedon was Zack Snyder's very good friend. That a 2-hour movie is what Zack wanted. But it was all lies. As I sat there in the cinema watching Justice League, at first I thought, okay. Then I realised, this is not Snyder's movie. This is not the movie we were promised. This is not the movie that they marketed. They marketed Whedon's version and Zack's version. The whole thing was wrong. And, they tried to bury this movie. They did. And if AT&T didn't buy Warner from Time Warner, who ran WB into the ground, by the way, and are the reason why WB are suffering today, by the way. If it wasn't for AT&T, it would never happen. So we do owe a great debt to John Stankey, who stood up and fought the horrible people at Warner Brothers Pictures at the time. He gave the 70 million, he supported Zack, and he wanted Zack Snyder's Justice League Series 2 and Series 3. But he couldn't fight Emmerich, Johns and Hamada any longer. And AT&T just couldn't run WB. The mess that Time Warner had left was too big for Stankey, and that's why they went and got David Zaslav and Discovery, who really, Zaslav is a firefighter, and he's fighting fires each day. And this all goes back to the mess that Time Warner created. Why do you think Time Warner sold the company and got out of Dodge so quickly? So I'm repeating Mr. Stankey's name because I think he does deserve credit. He was very brave to give Zack that money. So heroes don't always wear capes, but Superman and Batman do. In Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut, after they've defeated Steppenwolf, we see Superman helping Batman up as they're climbing up on that wall, right? And you see the journey that these two characters have been on since Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. That's character evolution. That's storytelling. That's a character journey. This is what audiences demand. And it's so beautiful. As I say, I don't have enough hours in the day. I can't make a 20-hour video talking about everything that I want to do about this movie. But I wanted to come in today. It's a quiet day for DC. It's a quiet news day. So I thought, let's talk about the Snyder Cut. Let's celebrate it. People are always going to be nasty. People are always going to be mean. People are always going to stomp on what you love. But you don't have to stoop as low as they do. Just talk about what you love. For 27 minutes today so far, I've spoken about something that I love. I've mentioned Justice League because it's not a real film. It's not really even Joss Whedon's fault. And I concede that Joss Whedon took on an impossible task. And I understand why he lost his temper and went mad. Look, he's obviously a problematic person, but he was under such pressure to make a new movie, line it up, and for it to be released at the same time. Also, he can make a Batgirl film. By the way, I think Joss Whedon is a fabulous writer-director. I think he would have made a great Batgirl movie and a great DC Extended Universe if he was in charge on his own. But he took over somebody else's film and was tasked to recycle it. And that was never going to work. Now, as I say, I'm not saying he's not a problematic person, but actually Joss Whedon is a pioneer. He's one of the writers of the first Toy Story movie. He did Buffy, he did Angel. Look, he's a very talented man. And again, I don't think we should forget that he's a really talented man. But wow, I think Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut may be the most iconic, most famous film in history because it was a fight, an impossible fight. We fought Access Media. How can we forget Mr. Fritz hit piece article saying there was no Snyder Cut, asking people at Warner Brothers apparently, talking to people like Chris Wong Svensson and trying to make them look stupid, try and make them look like conspiracy theorists. And after that report, our heads went down. But we rose up again. And we fought. And we fought. And we won. But it's not about victories. It's not about that. It's not about getting one up on this studio. We did something so beautiful. And let's not forget the thousands and maybe hundreds of thousands by now that's been donated to Zack's charity. Suicide prevention charity, right? Don't know the exact name of it, keep on forgetting it. Imagine the amount of people suffering from depression, mental illness, people who have lost people via suicide being helped by you, the fans. By you, the fans. So, I know the Snyderverse is deemed by some as toxic, and look, we can't bury it under the carpet. There's a small minority of Snyderverse stans that are bullies, are aggressive, and I will never defend them. But they're not the ones I'm supporting here. I'm supporting you, the families, the husbands and wives, the teenagers, loads of you out there who say to me, Mick, we watch your videos every day. When we were fighting for the Snyder Cut, you'd watch my Snyder Cut videos every day. And I used to be on Vero. I'm not on Vero anymore because it was just one, it was just one social media platform too many. But I remember people messaging me on there and saying, Mick, we love it. We watch it over breakfast because obviously I'm in Europe and a lot of you are in America, so the time differences and everything. And I appreciate those messages. But you know what? I'll tell you why I fought for this. And I'm not going to pretend I'm some kind of altruistic hero. My main reason was I wanted to see this damn movie, and it wasn't fair. But also, of course, I fought for Zach and Deb. Of course, I empathised and had compassion for their loss. Losing a daughter, especially in that way, is harrowing. And even to this day, my thoughts are always with them. It's a horrible thing to go through. But the way they handled it was absolutely beautiful. And you see, there's good and there's bad karma in life. And because Zach and Deb are such wonderful, well-adjusted people and have not a toxic bone in their body, they got that positive karma. Thanks to their tenacity, thanks to us, and thanks to Mr. Stanky of AT&T, he got to see his movie. Just imagine the day it was released, how it felt for Zach. As I say, it may be the best DC movie ever made. It's insane, it's brilliant, it's outstanding.